Welcome, Cristina DeLuna, LPC Board Administrator, and Robert Romig, Deputy Director for BHEC. Thank you guys for joining us. Where do you guys want to get started?
Well, thanks for having us. I think I'll let Christina go first, and
I
she's
would
got
if I
some.
were you.
Yeah, exactly. She knows more than I do. So,
I don't
um,
know.
and yeah, we'll just tag team it and then answer questions.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you have never met these two before, Mr. Romig, I hear you all the time on the Lunch and Learns, and Christina goes to TCA, she goes to TASES, she's at a booth, she is always willing to answer your questions. She is, I don't know, I think you're pretty approachable, Christina. It's just me,
I do
but
try to be. We don't bite, I promise.
not at all. All right, Christina, what's going on at BHEC and the LPC board these days?
Yeah, I mean, everything seems to be going really well. We have a lot, going on with our website. We have made things a lot more accessible, I think, for everyone. I can show a couple, share my screen and show a couple spots real quick that I just want to make sure everyone's aware of. We will be working on a new website that we can hopefully make a little bit more friendly. Anytime you guys might have ideas or anything like that, definitely shoot them over to us. We definitely want to hear from you. And I'll go ahead and just get started on that. I'm going to share my screen.
I made you co-host, so you should be able to do that.
Awesome, thanks. And I'll just try and be real quick with it. Let's see. All right. Do you guys see the behavioral website page? Okay, excellent. So I'm sure most all of you, and I hope all of you know how to get to the board webpage. But real quick, just related to the board rules, that kind of stuff. We have this new proposed rule changes and rulemaking process link. It's on the main Behavioral Health Executive Council webpage. So once you click onto that link, this is some really helpful, useful information about rulemaking and what's kind of going on with everything. As you can see, BHEC has some, right now, some of the other boards do. The LPC board currently does not have any rules up for public comment right now, but I know you all already know because Dr. Walker has probably informed y'all. We have a meeting coming up on Friday, so there will be a rule discussion and proposals and all that in there. So we will, keep a lookout on this page. It is something that we will want to hear from you all about. So that's a really helpful tool to go to and just kind of keep up with what's going on. Um, let's see. I know we have kind of a mix of LPC associates, students, supervisors, a little bit of a mix in this group, right?
Yeah, and showing the FAQ page, I was just kind of going through that
Yeah.
before I jumped on, and you guys keep adding so much good stuff to that answers so much of our questions, so many of our questions.
Yeah. So again, if you're on that main BHEC web page, make sure you go over to the LPC page so that you can get all the information for the LPC board. All the links here on the right-hand side, just a lot of helpful tools for everyone. The FAQs section we do have here, we're trying to make it a little bit user-friendly. I don't know if any of you all have probably looked at it in the past, and it was just a bunch of question and answers all in one page. And so it could be a little more challenging to find your answer. So we're trying to make it a little more friendly, and that kind of thing. So we're still working on it. Again, we're going to keep adding as we go. If it's questions that we get often, we want to make sure and have that available to you all. So if you come across something, definitely please come and try and find it on one of these pages. And then, if not, definitely go ahead and email us using the contact form. But we do try and keep up with it as much as possible. Another place I want to show you all real quick, the forms and publications page. Is it that one? Let me make sure. Hold on. I'm going to go back to the LPC page. Yeah, forms and publications for LPC. So again, if we have new applicants here, there may be some forms that you'll need to have, like the supervisor agreement form, the experience form, those practicum forms, any of the forms that you're looking for, they're going to be found on the forms and publication page. So any supervisors out there, if you have a potential associate or you have a current associate, you're ready to upgrade and you need to get that SED form submitted, you can find those forms here. And I know there's been some, let me see, was there one more thing? Oh, one more thing I want to tell you all before that. If you stay on the LPC page, meetings, hopefully you all are already signed up for the email updates, right? You're getting the information about when we have meetings coming up, rules that are coming up. Just to make sure everyone knows, we do have a meeting coming up on Friday. We have the materials here, the public meeting materials that you can find. And if you ever needed to go back to old meetings, you can do that. And then if you, I think it's at the very bottom, you can go to the council's YouTube channel. So just remember, we have a YouTube channel where you can go and watch all of our past meetings and just kind of keep up with things. And if you wanted to keep up with other boards, even maybe some of you are duly licensed, this is a great place to follow, find and go back to. Let's see. So I'm gonna stop sharing. In a little bit, if anybody has questions to go back on the webpage, just let me know. But I just wanted to kind of give some updates. I know it's been kind of confusing maybe the last year or so, especially with me coming to the different meetings and letting you know that we can update like the hours and adding supervisors and all that online. That is still a tool. You can still go ahead and add your associates online. You can still add the experience hours on the online portal, but we are going to want the forms. So if you're changing a supervisor, we're still going to want that supervisory agreement form. So just make sure you go ahead and send that. If you then for the experience hours, we will want the form because we want the supervisor to be signing off on those hours, acknowledging that everything is good with those hours. Okay, so you won't get penalized or anything. We'll just reach out to you all and ask for that now. That's kind of something we're going to be going ahead and getting back on track on. So are there any questions on that part? Because I know that's always something that comes up.
Christina, that's the
Well,
experience form. What about the change of supervisor form? That's an additional form, correct?
Yes. Do you want to take that one, Robert?
yeah, I was going to say just to sort of explain some of the reasoning. What we found is on the online form, online tools are great. It's been very helpful, but it is limited to when the date, sort of the timestamp, if you will, of when that happens is when somebody goes online and does it. And we all have busy lives, things happen, and as you can imagine, there are some times where a supervisor forgets, doesn't get around to filling it out online, and so there's a gap of when the associate thinks they started versus when we think they started. There's also sometimes there's disagreement about who's the supervisor at what time, and really ultimately what makes you a supervisor and as an associate, what guarantees that you are being supervised is when you and the supervisor enter that supervisory agreement and sign that supervisory agreement form. That's really y'all should be doing that on your first meeting when you've decided to have that relationship, and that sort of starts the clock and is the formal thing. And so that's why it does not have to be submitted right that day. It's not it's again, this isn't meant to be a gotcha process, but that is really the formal documentation establishing your relationship. And so that's what we need when there's confusion about, does somebody have more than two supervisors at a time, or whose hours are supposed to count, who dropped the ball on something, that sort of thing. And so that's why that documentation is important for y'all to keep and have, and then ultimately for the associate to be sending that in when they're changing supervisors so the council is updated.
Awesome. And so one of the things, not everybody is familiar, especially our new supervisors. They're not all familiar with the online systems, and I know you guys are improving those all the time. So we do have a question. And so to verify, there is a way to log your supervisee's hours, and your supervisee can do that as well, right? They can put in the number but the form is what makes it official, correct?
Correct. Because it's sometimes it gets updated quickly, sometimes it doesn't. And, ideally, we would like someday to go to an online system where it is foolproof and we can just rely on that as the documentation of ours, but we're just not there yet. And so to be safe and fair to everybody, we rely on the paper documents that the supervisor signs as officially verifying ours.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we're going to continue to see what we can get done on the web page, on the portal side, and hopefully in the future we can continue to make it easier and quicker. But I will tell you all, staff are processing less than 2 weeks processing time right now, which
Wow.
I know many of you may have seen what we were at a while, a couple of years ago, a while ago, and it was tough for many of you that are probably on this call. And so 2 weeks is great. And if you have everything, when you're applying or going for upgrade, if you have everything right at that time when you submit that application, it can get processed right then. So it could be a couple of days, if not a day. Last conference I went to, I had many people that came up and said it was processed that same day. So if you have everything that you need when you do that application, you should be good to go.
Awesome. So again, I'm looking for people to post questions in the chat. And until we see those kind of rolling, Christine, if you don't have anything, I mean, because I've got questions. I've got stuff that I've stalked our Facebook and pulled things out of. So,
Well, if you don't mind, I'll go through a couple of the rule
excellent.
changes, because many of you hopefully participated in our big rule review process that we just went through over the last year, it feels like, I think.
Yeah.
And so if let me share my screen if I can request to do that. All right. So we had a long process where we took a bunch of feedback on rules that were problematic and needed updating, and we've tackled a few right away that we felt like needed to get clarified, and then we've got a little bit up, sort of teed up that I'll say we're looking at first. So a few things that we have tackled right away that will be they have been proposed already. They've been out for comment for a while. And now the board will be considering adopting them this Friday's meeting. And some of them, folks, y'all have written in with questions, and I want to explain sort of what they do and what they don't do. One of them is removing some language from the general ethical requirements that we found to be just unenforceable as it's written. Has to do with really proving a state of mind of the client about exaggerated beliefs or ideas, or trying to take reasonable efforts to essentially fix somebody else's statement when it's not being relied upon by the counselor. And what I want to say is, although we're removing these particular two items, this in no way allows a counselor to rely on any sort of misrepresentation or fraud or deceit. The rules are very clear and what we want to be focusing on is your conduct and your action as the counselor. And so it certainly still is a violation of rules to in any way mislead the public or a client, to make any false or deceptive statements, or to actively rely on someone else's misrepresentations or false statements. What this simply is removing is if you are at a party and somebody makes a misrepresentation about what counseling can or cannot solve, you're not under any obligation to fix that misrepresentation. You didn't make it and you're not relying on it. Now, if you're sitting with a client and the client says, my sister told me that you're going to be able to cure me, and you don't correct that false impression, yes, you are then relying on a misrepresentation as part of that relationship. So just wanted to make sure that was clear.
And Robert, there was a good example at the LMFT meeting about, and you gave a great explanation about fake Google reviews or asking others to do that.
Exactly. That would still be a violation if you either benefit from or ask somebody to make a false review. But we're not going to require you to be the governance of all possible reviews online. If you have a profile on a national web page and somebody posts a fake review on your profile, and you're not relying on it, you have no idea about it, you're not under any obligation to police that. That's not your role. Similarly, there's a rule that's removing some language about drug and alcohol use, and this is because it's duplicative. Again, we are not saying it's okay to be drunk while you're providing services. Not okay. It is still a violation if you are providing services while impaired. It's elsewhere in the rules already, and we just generally don't like to have the same thing said multiple times. Same way, the rule about assumed names, and this is one we are trying to be more pragmatic about. The language of this rule has gotten folks a little twisted about do I have to put licensed professional counselor every time on my business card, or can I use the phrase LPC? And if it's an associate, can I put the A, or do I have to say associate? And if my name is Karen, but I go by K, or Nicholas, but I go by Nick, can I put that on my sign or not? And ultimately, the council is not in the business of regulating your business and your advertisements. What we're interested in is, are you misleading the public or the clients? And so while we're getting rid of this rule, it's still, again, your name and what you say on your business cards or your advertisements or your sign outside the door needs to not be misleading. People need to know who you are, how to look up your license, and know how to track you down. There's nothing wrong with using your middle name, for example, as who you are practicing under. But if in doing so, you don't have your license number anywhere and you don't have any reference to your first name, and they can't look you up anywhere in the system, that's a problem. So that is what we're talking about when we're saying be clear and transparent. And then again, we have another one that'll be hopefully adopted at this next meeting. Same thing, false misleading advertisements. This idea of taking advantage of fears or emotions as an advertisement, that's we're not interested in the advertising language and sort of, was the advertisement meant to promote fears? If you in your counseling and your therapeutic services use fear as a method to treat your client, and that violates the standard of care for a counselor, that's a violation, right? That is still not okay under the rules. We're just talking about, we're not going to try to judge, did your advertising commercial use scary music and that's somehow preying on fears. We're not doing that. So again, all these are designed to be pragmatic changes to really focus on your conduct as a professional and not get into the weeds of bureaucracy. So those are all things that have been proposed and commented on. I want to talk just a minute on, here are the things that are sort of up for future consideration, that are comments that y'all gave us of things you want to hear more clarity about. So one is informed consent, and particularly like in crisis situations, and how to deal with getting that informed consent when maybe the person is not in a position to give that. How do you handle those emergency situations? And our rules don't necessarily handle that right now. Another is dealing with the idea of boundaries and dual relationships. And this one is a very touchy topic. And so I don't know what changes, if any, we would make. But it's certainly in our society now, folks having multiple multiple jobs. A number of you, a number of your colleagues have side professions. They're not just counselors. They also have other things that they're doing. And so our rules probably need to reflect when is it okay for a client to buy something of yours off Etsy, if anything. When is it okay for you to provide an evaluation, a court-ordered evaluation of someone when they're 5, and 20 years later they ask you for therapeutic services? Is that okay or not? Again, I don't have any answers right now. It's just something y'all have said. This is not as simple as the rules make it out to be, and we need to look at this. One that I think we will be talking about on Friday is potentially proposing a rule to remove the expiration date on the supervisor course. So those of you who are looking toward becoming a supervisor, you may know the rule says that if you are using your doctoral course, it expires in 5 years. And if you go get a course after that, it expires after 2 years. And there's been a big request to remove that expiration. And so we're going to consider that on Friday, and the board may propose a rule to remove that expiration. A question we got about experience is, with having multiple supervisors, what is the balance of how many hours per supervisor are you supposed to have? Is that 4 hours per month a total? And if so, how do you break that down among multiple supervisors? And frankly, how do y'all deal with when supervisors go on vacation? And supervisors, how are you supposed to manage if there's a break in time? You know, people take trips, people stop seeing patients for a while. That's okay. So we'll try to address those situations a little more. And then finally, just generally addressing supervisor requirements as a whole. You know, what we want to be seeing from supervisors is a recognition that y'all are acting in our stead, in the state stead, to provide oversight and make sure associates are doing what they need to do to become trained to be independent practitioners. And so we want to make sure it's clear what sort of supervision logs are required and what information that needs to have. We've gotten a lot of questions from new supervisors, especially about, well, other than meeting and talking for 1 hour, what do you need to show something's going well? And what do you document when something's not going well? You know, we have what you are generally supposed to do is have a remediation plan with your associate if things are not going well. But what does that mean? What does that look like? And how do you fill that out? And what happens if things don't go well? So we're going to be looking at all of these topics over the coming months, trying to bring more clarity to the rules. So,
Awesome.
no, that's a whole lot thrown at you.
Well, let me stay on we have questions, and I'm going to do this a little bit out of order just because I think these two you can answer quickly. So first of all, forms can be emailed or snail mailed, correct? What do you prefer?
I think we prefer email.
That's what I thought.
Email. Even
Okay.
though Dr. Walker doesn't like email,
I hate email.
probably better. And it's a trail, you know, you guys have proof that you sent it to us and all that. So
Excellent. And then, so when you upgrade, when the associate upgrades, you only need the experience hours. You don't need notes. You don't need logs. All you need is the experience hour form, and the supervisor has 30 days to get that in. And anything else I'm missing there?
just that the supervised experience documentation form, and it should be submitted 30 days from the date that you end supervision with that associate. And just keep in mind, if you're the first supervisor or the last supervisor, it's within 30 days of you ending supervision with that associate.
Awesome. All right, now I'm going to go back. The NPBD. Now, there's some confusion about this. I know you guys are going to be making folks do that if their CEs are being audited. That happened to me, and so I filled it out and I requested it and sent it in. So, but this question is about upon renewal. So are you going to be requesting that when folks renew, or is that not a thing?
Only if selected for audit.
Perfect. Okay. Now,
But
oh,
I can let you know on that. We are requesting something that will make your lives a little easier, we think. We're requesting the legislature this session to approve for us to sign up for NPDB has a permanent rolling check that instead of the $3, it costs $5. And that would mean if you do it once when you apply or renew, you don't have to fill it out again and you don't have to send it to us, and they will let us know if anything ever hits on your NPDB. And so we're hopeful that we can go to that automatic system so that it'll still be part of the renewal fee that you'll pay, but otherwise you won't have to do anything.
excellent. And you mentioned it that and I'm going to kind of segue to the CE. What you guys are partnering with a company this summer, right? And we're going to be able to upload our CE documentation to them. So talk just a little bit about that, and then I'm going to go to Aaron Rob's question.
Yes, that we are. We've just in the last couple of weeks actually finalized the contract with a company called CE Broker. And what they are is just essentially an online management tool where we will give them the instructions of what CE requirements we have for y'all. And so the 24 hours and the 6 hours of ethics, etc. And you will each then just go on and make an account with them. There's a free account. It does not have to cost you anything. They have a paid account with more bells and whistles if you want it. That's your choice. And then you'll be able to simply upload your CE certificates into the categories that are required. And so it will automatically say you can upload your ethics. You'll get a certificate from Dr. Walker. You upload it to your account and say this was 1 hour of ethics. It then keeps track of that for you, and then at your renewal, it just tells us yes or no, they've filled in everything that they need to. And so that will take care of all the auditing and CE tracking that's required.
Awesome. All right, Dr. Rob is first thanking you because folks who work with litigating parents were happy to see the changes where the board would stop accepting complaints while there was an active court appointment. Daryl Spinks noted in a recent lunch meeting that checking the court order would be the first step when these kinds of complaints come in. However, we continue to see that is not the case. Literally, complaints where the client attaches the order showing the LPC is still appointed and the issue should be addressed to the court are still being sent out, costing LPCs thousands of dollars in attorney fees and driving more people away from working with these families who really need our help. What's going on?
So happy to look into, Aaron, if you want to email me any particular case names. We can't talk about that in a public setting, but happy to look into any individual cases. Generally, what I would say about the complaint process is for one thing, we have tried to take it down a notch, if you will, we've transitioned to when we get a complaint. Used to, what we would do is send out a notice that was called a notice of violation, and it basically said, based on everything we've learned thus far, this is what we believe are violations, and so we need your response. So we realized, well, if that's the first thing you're getting, that's going to put you on a very defensive posture and make it seem like we're already ready to throw the book at you, and we're not. We're just trying to get your side of the story. And so now every complaint that comes in, starting last September 1st, from now on, you'll get, if you get a complaint and if it has any merit to it, if it says something crazy on it that is my counselor was wearing green shoes and I think that is a violation of the rules and they should never get to wear green shoes, we're not going to even tell you about those. Those are just going to get dismissed. But if it's possible that what the complaint is saying is something you did that is a violation, we will send it to you with essentially a notice of investigation, where we're just saying, hey, we've gotten this complaint. If it's true, that could be a violation. We need to get your side of the story. Now, At that point, you are absolutely within your rights to hire an attorney and to start that as a formal process to have a response. We don't require you to have an attorney at that point. And certainly I'm a lawyer. I'm not a counselor. And so I perfectly understand the lawyer advice is going to be, yes, get an attorney right away because you never want to say something that might come back to haunt you. And I get that. But we are certainly very open for you to just respond in your own words at first and to not hire an attorney and pay all that expense. And if at that point you can just clear it up by saying, "Hey, whoa, this is a court case. We're in the middle of it. It is not final yet. Don't start down this road." That's good enough for us. That we will take that. So that is certainly your choice. We are trying to provide an option there at the beginning to have a really informal response to us to take care of it. Otherwise, what I'd say is I'm sure we don't always get it right. These go to our investigative staff, and they are taking what action they feel is appropriate to pursue it. If we've gotten it wrong in cases, we will try to educate our staff to do better next time.
Okay, thank you. So along the lines of complaints, this looks like it was addressed, it was an associate actually asking their supervisor. And so if there's a complaint for an associate and it has been 18 months since submitting their response, how will they and the supervisor know if the complaint has been resolved if there has been no communication from the board, except that it'll take 6 to 12 months? Is it possible for the complaint to expire where the board does not do anything, that it falls off their record, or the board, in other words, if the board has decided not to pursue it? And she emphasized this is the language the associate was using, and she wanted to make sure she used their language when she asked us.
Sure. No, it won't expire and just go. If all things are going well, it is not supposed to just go into the oblivion. If a complaint comes in, you will be notified. Again, if you're never notified, because it just doesn't have anything worth bothering you for, then we wouldn't notify you that we dismissed it. But assuming based on this question, you have been notified and you've given a response, then if we ultimately dismiss it, you will get a letter. We do have a backlog of complaints right now. We only have 4 attorneys that have to handle all. I think we've got 500 complaints that are working their way through the system, and so we are trying to move faster and get those resolved, but that is one that is taking a long time at the moment. So certainly we beg your patience. You can reach out and if you want an update, but not hearing anything is certainly not bad news.
Okay. So I think we're caught up on questions. So I'll move to mine. Mr. Romig, you had a really great response and description of coaching at the LMFT board meeting and explaining why coaching can be a problem. Now I know LMFT, they have a different, it's part of their definition. LPC, it's not. And this meeting today is, I know we've got lots of licensees here. We may even have social work here. So, but I thought your explanation was really, really good, especially for those of us who are supervising associates who may be, anyway, I don't want to say too much, but if you would go over that explanation of coaching, I think that was really good for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, the MFTs are unique because they do have one of their rules lists out all the modalities of marriage and family therapy, and that includes life coaching specifically. But certainly it is stepping away from the quote unquote term life coaching. Coaching is something y'all do regularly. I mean, that is part of counseling services that y'all provide. At the same time, we have seen there are very much people who use the term life coach or other kind of coach, spiritual coach, guru, life guide, that are not licensed and are not providing a licensed service. And it is certainly a gray area for us trying to regulate. Where does that fall in place? So one of the rules we are going to propose at the next council meeting in February 18th, is designed to try to recognize that there are going to be times where you as a professional are doing conduct like coaching that could be under your license or could not be under your license. And how are we going to treat that? And the way I like to explain it is, if you are using your license, then the fact that you do something under that professional relationship that is not strictly speaking professional counseling, doesn't mean that you've taken off your licensing hat. So if you think about it, in the course of your relationship with a client, you will exchange emails, you will document personal contact information, you will have an office setting that you are hosting and paying for, you will do any manner of things that anyone can do. They don't have to have an LPC license to do those things. But certainly, when you are doing them for your clients, you are doing so in the context of an LPC professional relationship. And therefore, all of that conduct is under your license and is subject to the council's jurisdiction if somebody files a complaint. But we certainly recognize, as we said earlier, some of your friends have multiple businesses that you are operating, or maybe you've thought about, could I offer life coaching, as we've heard a lot of folks wanting to do it as a virtual service to folks in other states that you're not licensed for. We want to recognize that and provide a way for you to do that, but not have it under the jurisdiction of the council. What is not okay is if you were tried to say, well, for the first 30 minutes of our session, I was providing professional counseling. And then for 15 minutes, I did just life coaching. And then for another 15 minutes, I went back to professional counseling. And then I ended with some sort of helpful spiritual tips. You can't take your hat on and off and on and off and try to say, well, the part that they're complaining about, that wasn't even professional conduct, so you can't look at that. What you need to do is, under what we're going to propose as the rule, you can essentially disclaim your license in one of two ways. Either it can be something that is just very clearly not in a professional relationship at all. You want to have an active social media website where you are putting out your thoughts and feelings. That is free speech. You can say what you want. You have not engaged in any sort of professional relationship with anyone. Now, you start using that as a tool that you direct your clients to, then maybe that's starting to be a tool that you're using in your professional relationship. But if no reasonable person would think that you're doing any professional services, then that's not under the jurisdiction of the council. The other way is if you disclaim in writing to your client. If you say, hey, you know what? I have two businesses. I offer professional counseling, but I also offer life coaching with a side of yoga. Cool. That's great. Just make sure when the person comes in, you're very clear from the beginning which service are you operating under, and have that in writing. Make sure it's very clear that you are not providing them professional counseling services, and then don't muddy the water later. Don't later say, well, you're one of my life coaching clients, but I also do this psychological assessment test that I think you'd really benefit from. So why don't we go ahead and add that, and we'll do that too. Well, now you've mixed up everything, and that's problematic. But if you keep them separate and keep it clear, that is absolutely your right to do so. Just because you got an LPC license does not mean we regulate every aspect of your life.
Awesome, thank you. I'm waiting for questions to come up about that. I know that's kind of a hot topic in our groups. So thank you for that explanation. All right, so we had a question in our group a couple of weeks ago about how many supervisors can an associate have before it raises a red flag with you guys? And that's never been in the rules, not at one time, right? Because we know they can only have two at once, but if they're just, we call it supervisor hopping, right? When does it start to raise a red flag with you guys?
I'll let Christina weigh in
Um,
first.
Yeah, I think really the red flag is going to be when we see maybe some supervisor reservations submitted, and there was a plan, and maybe the associate said, well, you know what, I'm just going to go find a new supervisor. So if that initial supervisor who had the reservations is still going to submit that information to the board, and if we see, some type of trail of them having an issue with some type of under supervisors, we'll definitely look into it and maybe even reach out to the applications committee for their opinions. We may ask for supervision logs. That might be a point where we might have to ask for some additional information. But you are correct. There is nothing in rules that prevents, a large number of kind of like shopping around. But yeah, do you guys see that often? Is that
Yeah.
something that you're seeing?
That's a thing. In fact, a few of us have proposed, and I hope it comes before you guys when you start to look at, I know you're finishing up the 4-year rules review, but a few of us were asking if it's possible to list every supervisor that the associate has had, kind of like we list the associates under our name. It would be an easy way for supervisors to actually go back and be able to check references too. So just food for thought.
Mhm. Yeah, the two big red flags we see with associate licenses are going to be those concerns, if it's flagged for we're not sure this person's ready to be independent, and then big gaps in time that are unexplained. So those are the things that I think anyone would naturally just want to understand what's happened here. And if you take a break, that's totally fine. But if it's uh, the supervisor says, yeah, they dropped off the face of the earth, and we were just getting into this complicated issue, and then they appear halfway across the state with somebody new, and that supervisor doesn't know anything about it, that's a problem.
How would you guys know that they had, right? Because the previous supervisor wouldn't know that that was even a thing, right?
And that's when we will sort of look at what all do we see, and can we tell a story that is clear. We try to be reasonable about it. If someone associate has 3 supervisors, and the first one they were with for their first 5 months, 6 months of practice, and that person has concerns and reservations and a remedial plan, and then they went on for another 18 months with supervisors 2 and 3 who don't have any concerns and think they're great. Well, that probably just reflects this person was starting out. They did not know everything they needed to know and were not ready to practice independently. And then they've had 18 months of practice under supervisors to now affirm, yeah, they're good to go. But if it's those last 2 supervisors for 18 months both say, oh no, we've got problems, well, then that's something to look into.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a question. I think it has to do with selling products. So Christina, I may ask you to unmute if you want to clarify this. So it says, along these same lines of coaching, what about advertising your gratitude journal with your name, LPC, on your professional website? Just add a disclaimer that this is not counseling and not offering the journal to the client specifically, then it's okay. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, as long as you're not muddying the waters, as I say, that's the thing that you want to look for. You have other private businesses or just online content, that is fine. where it gets problematic is, yeah, again, if you refer your client there, certainly for as I say, while it's okay to have separate businesses, you'll need to be really cautious before you allow a client to have interaction with you on both businesses. Is it a problem for your longtime client of 20 years to buy a painting that you sold on Etsy? Maybe not. Maybe, but it's going to raise eyebrows. And certainly, if you have some other kind of therapeutic practice, you offer meditation, goat yoga, coaching, you have spiritual books and guides that you sell, you recommend and sort of funnel your client toward purchasing those things, that's problematic. That you are engaging in a dual relationship potentially, where maybe unintentionally, but it certainly there can be examples where it is intentional, that you are inappropriately getting the client to spend money on things outside the therapeutic relationship.
So just to clarify, if someone does have products in addition to their counseling practice, could they put verbiage, something to the effect of you don't have to buy this. Buying this doesn't mean it's a cure, just making sure they're very, very clear that they don't have to purchase.
Absolutely. And especially when these things are online transactions where you didn't ever necessarily even know that the client purchased them because it was just through a website and then it was shipped by somebody else, things like that. Or it's just sitting out on a table and they check out with your receptionist and pick it up and want to buy something. Yeah, all those factors, the more you can do to make it clear it is optional and you are not directing them or using that relationship toward that, you're good.
Awesome. Okay, okay, then we have a couple of, so it's to clarify, what you're stating then, Robert, is that it's okay to use your credentials when promoting the life coaching, non-counseling product.
It is always okay to be truthful, right? If you indicate by your name that you are licensed and that is true and you are licensed, then that's fine. If you are doing it in any sort of way that a reasonable person would look at and say, oh, this thing is endorsed by a counselor in a way that means it's special or different, or this is sanctioned by the state of Texas, or this is a therapeutic guide that is the same as getting treatment. Anything like that, then you're getting into problems. But again, just being truthful about the fact that you hold a license and are credentialed, there's no problem in just being truthful about that.
Okay, now I know we're going to get questions about this, and one that's, so someone's saying, so if I have a blog, if I have a word of the day, if I have a quote, and I'm putting this stuff out there for public consumption, I can use my credentials and we're okay.
I mean, now you guys are making me nervous, but I think so. I will certainly go back and ask our general counsel if I'm stepping out here, but
No, this is what people ask, right? We hate to get in trouble, Robert. We really, really
yeah,
don't.
yeah, I certainly think you have seen your colleagues do this, and I've seen posts. I think people's Facebook profiles include their license in their name sometimes, right? So, I don't think certainly it is not the case that you have to hide the fact that you're licensed and pretend like you're not. Like that's not, the rules don't require that.
And if you have resources for your client, like a blog or like the checklist or like here's a great resource, you can say your name and your license.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can have resources out there. Again, if you want to put out a blog regularly that has daily therapeutic practices that you think are useful, that's great. And just being out there, out in the ether, it's not something in a professional relationship that we will necessarily even look at the content. However, if in whatever way you're either directing your clients to review it, or you find out your client is using it daily, then it comes under the auspice of you better be falling in line with the practice of counseling. You can't mix in politics or religion in a way that necessarily stretches the boundaries of that professional relationship. But
Okay.
otherwise, I mean, this is a murky gray area, but we're trying to say that you can have your own independent life and have political ideas, religious ideas, cultural ideas, civic ideas. You are still a free person to do that. And to have that information out on your social media, just where it starts to blend with your professional relationships, that becomes a problem.
Okay. So the question next is, how can they email you with specific questions?
Oh man, now I'm a
We need your
little
personal email. I'm
yeah,
just surprised, you know.
I'm putting it in the chat.
Okay.
I can't promise to have any better advice than I'm giving now, but I can certainly try to repeat it.
And somebody wants to know, can they provide a book that they wrote? Can they give a free copy to their client? Maybe
Again,
it's a good one.
probably, especially if it is a therapeutic book and it's helpful to them and you're giving it free, that's material that's in line. You if it is a fiction book that is just for fun, again, for free, probably that's fine. But is if it is controversial in some way or has things that are maybe gosh, I'm trying. I have to think about the worst case scenarios. So if you choose to write an erotic book and then give a free copy to your client, and that has nothing to do with the counseling relationship, that's probably not okay. They didn't ask for it. They didn't, they're not seeing you for any sort of sex therapy. I, I can't say that giving a client an erotic book is a good thing. Uh, I think y'all are reasonable people and can probably feel out the bounds of what's okay and not okay in these situations. But that's how I think about these things.
And I'm just proud of us. We didn't have one person ask about the CE rules. Did you guys notice that? I think this is like, I need to ring a bell or something. That means y'all are doing a good job explaining it and we are doing a good job understanding it. All right, guys, we have a few more minutes. So still have time to post questions in the chat.
It looks like there's one. I see Cristina answered the question. If you have any more about implementing a remedial plan, that is certainly something we do encourage you to do if you have an associate that is not measuring up. Mainly, don't let it go to the end. What we really don't like to see is somebody has an associate and they get all of their hours and everything seems fine, and then they document at the very end on the form, well, yeah, they've gotten all their hours, but I'm concerned about them being an independent practitioner, and they've never told the associate, and they don't have a remediation plan, and it feels like you're just bringing this up now. That's not fair to the associate.
But Robert, let me clarify that if the folks supervisors give their supervisee a remediation plan and the supervisee completes it to the supervisor's satisfaction, you don't need to see a copy of that, do you?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
And we don't generally need to see the remediation plan unless we ask for it.
Perfect. All right, Aaron says, what's the thing y'all want practitioners to really stop doing that we don't understand?
I know I have one. Cristina, do you have one?
Let me hear yours first. Let's see.
So mine, just as a personal thing, and maybe I can just say it, is please stop asking us about providing services to someone in another state.
Oh,
I,
That was the
we don't
second thing
control
nobody
that.
asked about today.
Yeah, we don't have the compact. I'm sorry. If the legislature adopts it, that's their call. And I don't know whether Oklahoma or New Mexico or California requires you to have a license to provide virtual services. I have a hard enough time keeping up with our rules. I don't know what other states do.
All right,
yeah,
Christine.
really the only other thing I can just recommend is I know it's a lot. I know there's a lot of information on the website. Definitely check the FAQs. Even just go
That's
to the
what I hate. You
rules
know,
and
Christina, nobody checks the FAQ.
I know, but even like control F and search for something in the rules with using a keyword, try and find it before calling staff. Again, it's they have a lot of work answering phone calls, answering emails, and they're doing great on processing times. And I understand sometimes it's difficult to find it because I'm like, okay, what's another keyword I can try to use? I know it's in here somewhere, but it kind of makes you familiar a little bit more with the rules as well, for especially for associates that are on here right now. Those rules are important, and just the term shall, must, that can change. The requirement, and it's important to really know what the rule says. So definitely trying to look for that and making sure supervisors are going over the rules with their associates, and associates know what your supervisors are supposed to be doing with you, what their role is when they're supervising you. That's really the biggest thing that I can send out to everyone. And we're here for you all, and I'm really grateful that we get to do this. And I hope that it was really helpful for everyone. But if y'all need anything, don't hesitate to contact the office.
Awesome. Thank you guys so
And
much.
sorry, one other note,
Yeah.
just if you do have questions, you're all very welcome to email me directly, but using our contact form, contact form on the website, it has drop-down menus, and those emails go to the right person. And so if you have a question about rules, underneath there is a tab for rules. It goes directly to me. I get all those emails. And so if you have a question about licensing, that will go to our licensing staff that are counseling licensing staff. So it really does go to the right place.
Excellent. And thank you guys for those improvements. It's such a different system. It's such a better system than it was in the past. Thank you guys so much. All right, guys, thank you. Before I wrap this up, I just dropped the attendance link one more time. And then Christina is answering the question about the National Provider Database. And grab whatever link and email information you need. Christina and Robert, thank you guys so much again for coming. This is our most popular webinar by far, and I hope to see you guys again next year. You coming to TASES, Christina? Or
I will be there.
all right, see you next month. All right, everybody,
Yes.
have a wonderful Wednesday evening and eat good food. Stay safe. See ya.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
y'all.